everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we're back again just one day later because I actually sat down and buckled down and spent a good hour, maybe an hour or so, reading through the short story Exodus by Diane Carey. And Exodus here, let me get you the page numbers, was, just a real short one. We're looking at 37. A 37 page little conclusion to the second book in the saga, the Gateway Saga, which was a very big book. The second book here was itself 334 pages. So this one was a rather large one, and I enjoyed this one quite a bit, particularly because it was a whole new cast of characters, a whole new cast of Star Trek characters, to get to know. So that was nice. And also because the situation of this book, the Challenger, they're like out on the frontier. They have to basically break down their ships to build this ship, the Challenger, and just I don't know, it's a very cool setup, and just it's really kind of got me interested in possibly jumping into that universe. But anyway, this book was very fun, and it presented a very interesting idea, which was this planet basically on the other side of the Gateway, which was a metal planet. So nothing on it, no form of organic life at all, just metal. And then these two species go there, and over thousands of years learn how to live there, but they're not really living. They're more or less just kind of, so dark. There we go. They're more or less just kind of surviving, but they're not growing, and they're shrinking time and time and time again. So anyway, in the last book, some of them left the Gateway to come out into into our dimension, basically, and then that's where they ran into the crew of the Challenger, and all the events of Gateway Book 2 of 7 happened, which we won't go into in depth here, I should say. Anyway, suffice to say, in the end, Captain Nick Keller of the Challenger chose to take a ship through the Gateway back to the metal planet of the living in order to convince them to leave the planet. Basically, they only had about 30 hours left to power this Gateway, and then it was going to close forever, and the people that were on the metal planet would never be able to leave. So he made the choice at the end of this book to go through, and then this story here tells us what happened after he went through. And very, very cool, very well done by Diane Carey, I would say. He goes through. First off, I love the way that she starts the story further down the line. So it doesn't pick up immediately after he goes through the portal. You get Nick Keller, who's already been living on this metal planet for a few months, He's made himself, he's made himself some friends in that time. He's kind of convinced some of the younger, where are we at? Some of the younger people on the planet to kind of rally to his cause. And when he first arrived, he met a young, or a female there named Braxton, and that was who kind of cared for him. So Braxton has his side, and Braxton is also one of the 3 ruling elders of the planet as well. The other elder is, I don't remember their names exactly, but anyway, basically the breakdown is one of the elders wants to leave, one of the elders wants to stay, the other is undecided. So they're kind of like right in the middle, and Nick has tried to convince them that they need to leave. So to facilitate that, they have to get power from these creatures which fly in the atmosphere, and they have to lure them down with their own bodies in this ritual called the Hunt, where then they gather their energy, and that's how they power their ships so they can get the heck out of there, right? So he's been there for a few months. He's been doing that. They're getting ready for the next hunt so they can continue to power the ships. Time, though, is running out. They have 30 days in our galaxy, but 30 days out there basically equals 1 year here in this galaxy, right? So that's another thing I love. I love the distorted time element of any kind of sci-fi. I think that's fantastic. I think that there was an episode of Voyager where the planet below was, spinning rapidly, and then they were like in a different time period. Definitely one of my favorite. I love that one. So it's just I love that that idea. It's very good. So anyway, so Keller has to convince them to go, and the big hero, the kind of like the legend of these people, his main idea was to go. So he kind of has that on his side, that it is kind of ingrained in them to go, but a lot of them are still scared. And then while they're preparing for this hunt, this elder from before, this Lunt T, returns through the portal and tries to convince everybody to stay, right? So he's trying to convince them to stay. Keller wants them to go. And then they decide that they can have they're all about like chaos and randomness here. They're going to have this kind of ritual hunt decision. So they will have, one from each side go out there onto the hunting fields and represent. And then when this creature comes out, and whoever it kills, obviously that's the one who wasn't supposed to be making the decision, right? So anyway, that's what they decide to do. And Braxum, the challenger, or whatever, names Nick as her... How does this work? Anyway, it's a very weird situation where basically they each name like a surrogate, and kind of Keller thinks he tricks him, but then what's his name? Lunt T pulls the trick right back on him, and then names Braxum as the surrogate, right? So now you have Braxum and Keller both going out there onto the killing field. If Keller dies, because Lunt T called for Keller to. And it's confusing, but it was cool. It was cool. All right. So Keller was able to, have Braxton out there on his side, but then Lunt T chose to have. Oh yeah, I'm missing a whole big part. Keller has a ace up his hole. All right, he has kind of been scanning these things, and he knows that if he uses his tricorder and emits a certain kind of energy, basically he'll put off these creatures, and they won't want to attack and destroy him or Braxum, right? So he's basically immunized himself and her against these creatures. So he knows now that since they're both out there, that nothing's going to happen. The creature's not going to want to eat any of them. The decision's not going to be made. The portal's going to close. They're not going to escape. So he somehow calls Lunt T out onto the field, and basically kind of using his just charisma and flair is able to kind of convince everybody there that this is the way that chaos intended it to be, right? And even Lunt T goes along with it. So now the three of them are out there. Two of them are immunized, and Keller knows that this Lunt T here is about to get zapped. And at this point, this Lunt T knows it as well. So these giant creatures, which you can kind of imagine like giant zeppelins almost of, gas, and they have like these electric tentacles that come down, right? And it's at this point where the three of them all know they're going to disregard him. They're going to go after Lunt T. They're going to win. But a really cool thing kind of happens right at the end here. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, of course I can't find here we go. At the end, he's kind of looking at Keller's looking at Lunt T. He's waiting for the end, and he knows it's about to happen. This thing's getting closer and closer to him. But then at the very end, he says, "Oh hell, why aren't I rotten?" And then he jumps and he knocks the guy down, and he gets one of these things, one of the spears that they use to hunt these things. He gets one of these in a very cool action sequence. So it's like a roll, and he catches it in midair, and he stabs the beast, and then he wraps him and Lantia up in this rubber mat while this thing, so they don't get electrocuted, and the thing explodes, and everybody gets saved. And at the end, the guy's like, "Well, why did you do it?" He's like, "Well, Chaos may have chose you to die, but I chose for you to live." So, Nick Keller, good captain, right? Really good. So, that was very cool, very interesting ending. And of course, at the end, then it switches over to the other side of the gateway, where you get to see the crew of the Challenger. They're all like eagerly awaiting, is he coming, is he coming? It's the 29th hour. They're down to their last bit of power to keep this thing open, and then boom, here he comes through. And he even opens up a mini portal, and he comes through right every time. Hello, I'm back. He even opens up this little mini portal, all right, and he comes through right onto the bridge, haggard and beat up, and right into a terrible situation where basically one of his crewmates, his friends, in the previous book, broke a rule, defied orders, and now this certain faction in that part of the galaxy is out for revenge against him, and he has to turn him over. And that's how this short story actually ends, is with him being handed over, possibly for sentencing to die. So this has got me like I need to know more. What is the fate of Zane Bonifay? That's the kid, Bonifay, who I believe was modeled after John Stamos, or not modeled after, but the author was that's what they were thinking when they did it. And I didn't know that when I read it, but now I know it now, so now I'm like, whatever happened to Mr. John Stamos in space, right? So I really want to get into this Challenger series, and it might very well be the next thing we get into. Because one of the things that I've enjoyed most about the whole Gateway saga is getting into the stuff that I'm not familiar with. The Challenger stuff, the New Frontier stuff, both of those have been really well done, and just, interesting and very, it's a whole new world of Star Trek for me to explore. So that concludes the Challenger section of Gateways. We are on to, I think, book 3, and here is the Deep Space Nine, which is the sequel to... Boy, actually, I'm confused now. So book 3 in here is... Let's check this out together here real quick. So book 3 of 7 is Doors into Chaos by Robert Greenberger, alright? But the third book in here is the Deep Space Nine conclusion, which is Horn and Ivory, the conclusion of Demons of Air and Darkness. Ah, I see. So it looks like they saved the TNG for the conclusion. So that must be the grand finale, as they say. Wow, okay, that was fun. So we're going to read some more, and I have a feeling we will be back tomorrow to talk about the next one. As long as I can get a good hour or two to get into that one. So anyway, thanks for hanging out and watching. As always, live long and prosper, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.